so today what we're going to do, we're going to talk a lot about the lead leg, and particularly we're going to be focusing on the downswing. And the reason why is that I do genuinely meet golfers that have the wrong idea about rotation and particularly about the lead leg functionality. The one thing that you shouldn't do, in my opinion, is try to consciously straighten the lead leg. I don't think you should, and this video will explain exactly why. Now, what needs to happen, as amateur golfers are aware, and what my recent video where I talked about a sort of step-by-step guide to a better impact position, I sort of highlighted the importance of making sure you get your angles right. So the first angle that you need to get is you need to get yourself very much downward facing. Okay, if you get downward facing, this gets you more over the ball, gets you lower to the ground. The problem is if you're too high up when you hit the ball, this arm straightens too quick and you get flippy. And that's how you're going to remedy that. You've got to get lower, and you've also got to create a bit of rotation to get out of the way and to create space. You can't just obviously, get yourself down here because there's nowhere for your arms to move through. Your body really is guiding your arms through that hitting area. So that's the first thing that you really need to be doing. Now, obviously, if I sort of, go downward facing, and I'm going to use my belt buckle as a bit of a reference in this video. So if my belt buckle moves down towards my lead ankle, if my pelvis therefore goes more downward facing, then my leg is going to create kind of more flex, really, isn't it? It's going to be pushed more into the ground. If you imagine I got my belt buckle facing up towards you guys, then my leg is inevitably going to straighten. So the first thing, that's really what you want to do. Golfers don't load very well in towards the lead leg is generally what research shows, and through my experience I tend to see, which is why you don't generate as much power as you potentially could. So the first thing that you want to be doing is understanding that it's really important to, especially in the start of the downswing, you want to be feeling about this leg staying more flexed and getting the pelvis pointing down into it. Now, the majority of golfers will understand that. You shouldn't straighten the lead leg at the start of the downswing. But when we see professional golfers, you'll probably think, well, no, but their legs are straight coming in towards that impact area. And there's definitely an element of truth in that. So effectively what happens, you see, is if I sort of just use one of my alignment sticks and just place it, and you could do this as well as a really simple visual exercise at home, but you place it through your belt loops. You just got to make sure that you tuck your belt over the alignment stick so it makes it nice and sturdy. And what you'll see is through angles, essentially. So once we go into posture, as I swing back, that creates a tilt. So you can kind of see the way the right side of the cane for me is higher position than the left side. So therefore, as we then start the downswing and we get the feeling of the belt buckle moving down progressively towards my lead ankle, what we'll start to see is this will start to operate more horizontally, okay? Or even, you'd probably say that the first move would be even more downward because of the already set tilt of the pelvis. But it will level itself out. But then as we come in towards the hip, because the lead side of the pelvis moves back, it will reintroduce the tilt. So now my trail side is much lower to the ground than my lead side. But in my golf swing, the leg can still stay flexed. And there's great examples of many tour professionals and many great golfers that keep the lead leg flexed. So I can still get my lead hip way behind me in terms of as a clearance perspective. So if I was swinging towards you guys, my lead hip can go way back behind me and I can still keep it flexed. It doesn't have to straighten. So the reason why your lead leg would straighten, in my opinion, would be due to force. So if you're somebody who tries to really whack the golf ball, what's effectively happening is that you would swing back, you would move in towards that lead leg like we discussed, but then because you're then trying to retract this lead shoulder out of the way and behind you so that it can really propel those hands forward in a sort of catapult fashion, then the more I retract that lead shoulder, and that's why you tend to see very, long hitters, that very jumpy and, a lot of foot movement, then inevitably then the lead leg would straighten. But I've met quite a few people recently online where I generally, whenever I work with somebody, I'm always asking questions. I'm like, well, what are you trying to do? And by asking those sort of questions, like what you're trying to do and what do you think is the truth, that will identify why they swing a certain way. And a few golfers have said, yeah, I'm trying to get my hips open, and somebody said I should really straighten my leg to open my hips, and I'm saying no, it's massively the other way around. it's the rotation which will move the leg, and it's the extension and the intent of power that will move the leg. Which is why when you watch pros do shorter shots, the legs stay quiet. You know, they're not doing a short shot like a little pitch and straightening the leg and getting up and through it. So today is just one of those videos about a subject area that some golfers get wrong. And what I'm basically saying is I think it's completely acceptable for that lead leg to stay flexed. So if you're somebody who, like so, if you notice that your lead leg stays flexed, I don't think there's a problem with that. I don't think it has to straighten unless you are really trying to whack it, which, personally speaking, for most amateur golfers is something that you really don't need to be doing and you want to avoid. The elitist golfers that are trying to get that extra bit out of themselves and can still retain that level of accuracy, possibly. But I still feel a nice, effortless, smooth swing is absolutely fine, and like I say here, that lead leg can still stay flexed and you can still generate an abundance of power. Catch up with you guys again really soon.